Hi, it's Shane here at the shoe repair store. Got this brown pair of boots here. Puppy, cute puppy damage. Going to cut the front off it. Went to the op shop, bought some brown shoes, cut the toe off them. And then we're going to glue that on the front. And then we'll remove all of that sole and build a new sole on there. The other shoe, boot, looks not too bad, but we'll remove that sole and replace that with the same sole that we're putting onto this one. So we'll see you in 4 or 5 hours and we'll see what they look like. This is the donor shoe that we're going to cut the toe cap off and then glue and stitch it onto the boot. A good view of the dog damage. You can see the sole's been eaten away, the edging around the sole is eaten, and then the upper, the brown leather bit, that white fluffy bit is actually the toe cap stiffener, which keeps the shape nice on the boot. And then you've got the black material, which is the lining, and then there's not much showing, but there should be an insole board which the upper gets glued to before the sole goes on. You'll see that later on. So I've just got the old sole off, and as you can see, once that comes off, everything else flies to bits. So we'll start in on that and get that new toe cap put on, and we'll be sorted. This is the donor shoe here. Just rip the sole off and unglue that a bit more. Who knows how much of that you can see around there. And then I've marked back to where we're going to go to, and then we're going to keep our fingers out of there. Cut through there. Some pretty bulky bits of lining in there. Now we can see what we're getting to. Yeah, that's quite annoying, isn't it? Get rid of that bit, we don't need that anymore. And get Tony Wyatt's helpful gadget. Scrape a bit of that rubbish off. Use this for everything at the moment, it's a favourite toy. Then we can get that under, right. Nice. Get in there, get that part. Sorry, Mr. Donor Shoe, $6 from the op shop, yours in the bin. $6 was the easy bit, finding the right pair, the right shape. So, this one's about, let's see, 8.5. 8.5 back to there. Just need to make these both the same, which is easier said than done. That looks rounded, doesn't it? But when it's sitting, it's straight. Somewhere there. It's a Sunday here in New Zealand, and so it's nice and quiet. Yeah, I'm going to snip that all the way across there. Go bravely. Keeping that sole so we can make it all fit later on. Right. Glue this back a certain distance. That wasn't too hard, was it? Actually, that's just lining in total. Regret taking that out of the other one, but I'm going to make them the same. Thankfully the glue's pretty old on this. No sooner say that, and gives more trouble. Hopefully I'm not stretching that too much, make some puckers later on. Right, so we're going to get rid of half an inch of that. It's just going to get a bit bunchy on that seam. Right, there we go. So I reckon we should call that one the left one, and we should write that on there now. This one the right one. Otherwise you know what's going to happen, eh? So I'm going to go back to working on the right one because it's the mission. I've cut the front off that one, and I'm going to get that glued in the right place and stitched, and get it onto the last and get that glued down. It's tempting to replace all of this stuff, but we've only got so much money to work with, and we know the day is going to disappear. Get that all glued down. Might replace a bit of this because I just can't resist it. It's not the best, is it? Anyway. So we've got that glued on, and now we're going to run a row of stitches across, make sure that stays in place. See about a normal stitch length here. Not sure if you can see what's going on there too well. Let's see if we can. Can't reach the foot pedal now. There's a tripod leg in the way. Let's try it there. How do people do this? So what we've just got to remember is the lining inside. Don't need a big pucker. Just happen to stitch that lining. So I'm not sure if it's smart or not smart. We're going to go with smart for now. We'll glue it down later. Look at that. So pull that thread up, find our snips. Cut that off. Did I get the bottom one? No. That's pretty well in place. Tempting to do another row, but pretty hard with this sort of stitcher to get them perfectly parallel. So that's stitched in. So now we're going to get this on the last and glue it all down. So we've got glue on it, waiting to dry. That's the insole out of the other boot. Here's the other boot. Sole off it, pulled apart. Just deciding whether to cut that front off that one as well before I put it on. I probably will. Make them feel the same. Just make it a little bit more time consuming. Here we've got the upper glued back down onto the insole board. Just had to use pliers to really pull that toe up and around just to get the depth of the toe box in there, similar to the other one. And now we'll go and do the other one. So got those both glued. Then we're going to run this edging around. Give us something to glue our soles onto. Then we'll grind the tread off the back here. Glue the foam on, and then we'll finish off with a heel on top of that. Once we trim this down to the right size, once it's glued on, and we'll recolour this to a brown. Just going to let that glue dry for a bit, then we'll get both of these edgings on and make sure both shoes are the same shape. Put the soles on and then grind them both at the same time so we get that line in the right place. Then put those heel blocks onto them, and then we'll find something like this Dupla Vibram product, or I might actually find something a little bit more grippy. I might go do that now, and then we'll wait for that glue to dry. So we're going to run the rand around this boat now. And it's important to get this step right because the whole rest of the shape comes from getting this right. I'm going to try and do this so you can see what's going on. Move that back a fraction. I normally sort of probably do hold it a bit differently. We're going to get a join on the inside here, but on the heel block where it doesn't bend. So we're going to push that in there. Get that nice and neat. We really want this kind of flat, because that's how the next sole is going to go on. If this rand or edging is up the side of the boot, we're expecting the sole to bend around the corner, then it's going to pop out, then we're going to have a gap. If we run it too far in, it's going to sit up on an angle, we're going to have a bump, and it's not going to work too well. So good tricks, pull on this a little weeny bit and try and set it right into there. And you don't have any straight spots, or maybe a little bit on the heel block, but pretty much there's no straight spots the whole way around a boot. So I'm just going to pull on that a bit. This toe is a bit weird because we've got multiple layers and other issues. We're still trying to get a continuous curve around here. We don't want a flat spot or an innie. Move this over a bit. So see me go around this toe. No, my hand's probably in the road. Just pulling this a little bit, keeping those teeth out there so they'll go on nicely, and getting that to run around there like that. Just pulling this fraction, and just sometimes down here. Oh, that didn't look too good. So to start with, just sort of laying it on there, not giving a massive push or anything. And down here is not the hardest. And then I don't know if you're actually getting to see this with my hand on the road each time. So I'm just pulling out on the end a bit, normally up a bit, but I'm just trying to keep my hand low so you can. It's still in the road, isn't it? Right, maybe next one we'll do the camera on. So we'll just have a little look at that before we snip that off. And well, it's okay, but it sort of pokes out a bit on that side. It's a bit over on that. I think it's going to have to do because of all the other issues this boot had. I can just lay the old sole, roughly speaking, where it used to go, and it is pretty much bang on where it went, within 2 mil. So we should just leave that in peace. It's just that the new cap we put on had a bit of a plastic cap in here, and it's giving it a bit of a bump along here, but I think we're in a good spot. Put that back onto there so we can see what's going on, and then just going to note where I'm going to cut this and the angle that the other cut has been made on, and then just make it fractionally tighter than it needs to be. That way that can sit nicely in there. If it's giving any grief, just pop a drop of Atom on there, and then there you go, you get yourself a nice looking little join. And now that we've got that all in a good spot, go around and just knock it with the hammer. That's flattened that bit out. That's turning into a thing of beauty. Right, we'll see you again shortly. We'll do the other one. Hey, Shane the Hobber here. We are just going to run this rand around with that camera on a bit better angle. So it's all about keeping it nice and curvy and keeping it nice and flat on the top. Going to put this join on the inside of the boot, halfway along the heel block there. These are work boots, it needs to be strong. So that's kind of flat across there, and that's what we want. If we have it rolled down the side, the sole's not going to enjoy that, and it's going to pop it up, and it's going to end up with a gap. If we run it with the rand in too far, you end up with a bump and a real narrow heel block. I tend to just pull this a fraction and then just try and run a curve around. Maybe tilt this up a bit so the teeth don't grab too early. I don't always lock this last either, but I'm just trying to hold my hands in the right place. Just run that around. And just a little bit of tension pulling on that rand seems to help quite a bit. Is that easy to see or not really? Let's try it around here. And up here, like nowhere do you really get straight bits, unless maybe on the side of the heel block. It's always curving. And so if you see a nice straight bit, not cool. And these toes, and basically this is just getting pressed on just by a little bit of weight with the hands. Before we snip it, we'll get the other boot. Try not to glue the boots together. And Right, lay that on there. Shoots pretty close, it pokes out a little bit of that toe there, so we could easily pull that back off there while it's not really stuck, and just round into there. Have to put a little bit of damage control there later. Lay that on there, and just check that again. Width of the heel block's something similar, are they? Oh, a little bit off there. Just get that forward. Oh yeah, now they're way similar. Fraction just on this side here. Could just come in a little bit. And around. Right, and then once again we'll give that the snip off. Just look at the other bit, see what the angle is, go a little bit tighter. And sure, you can fill it later or get that join perfect. It's nice just to get it right first time. Who wants to come back and do more work? Most of us. Right, and then now that's on there, give that a knock with the hammer. Sorry if the camera's bouncing around. Right, we'll give that a bit of a tickle up on the grinder and we will then get the next sole on. That noisy fan down, that's the fume extractor. So this doesn't need heating, but I'm just going to give it a gentle heat just to make everything a little softer, and it might just make life a little bit easier. Then we're going to get the sole on the bench there. And this is some sticky glue, so as soon as that touches it's all over if you need to move it. And put that onto there. Just sort of roll that forward a bit just to give that a bit of shape in the front there. And push that on there. Give it a gentle knock with the hammer. We've got a new little random rattle in the back there. At that point, it's pretty well sealed up. We'll pop it onto the press. This lady is using these for work boots out amongst the farmyard animals apparently. Give this other one a quick press as well. Actually, I think we're giving it a heat at this point. We'll give it a press later on. Same again, just making sure that he's going to land on there. Give it a little bit of a roll on the front there. That's not a good new sound, is it? Trap that down. Now, see where this camera's at. We'll give this. Just going to jump in here with a knife and just cut that off back to that edging. The more we can knife off, the less time we're going to spend on the noisy, smelly, hot grinding machines. Stuff cuts reasonably well, even though it's quite abrasion resistant, the soling, it wears well, it's nice and grippy, but you can certainly cut it pretty easy with a fresh knife. Then we're going to measure in 85 mils from the back. About there. And we'll go and take the pattern off there before we build a heel block on there. So we'll go and get that done. I'll trim this other one off, grind those bits up, and then we'll show you once that gets some glue on. Might as well trim this one off while we're at it. Pull that little rubber tail out, it makes it a lot easier to cut. Even easier if you have glue on my thumb, I keep sticking to it. And this is a good part of it, to take your time and get nice and accurate, because A, you're going to save yourself time on the grinder, but It's a bit demoralising when you undercut and have to redo something. That's what you don't want when you're in a rush. Right, so we'll do that same 85 on that, we'll get some glue on them and then we'll make some heel blocks. So here we've got the heel blocks glued on. Now we're going to grind them down to the right height and the right angle so that once we put another piece on, hey, where's that going? So it doesn't sit like that, so it sits a bit nicer. We've got the original still sitting there, so we can copy that to get the angle right and get it sitting nice. Then we glue the last layer on, trim around them, and it'll be all done. Bit of polishing, of course. So we've ground those down to the right heights and a sensible angle. A arc up there, we must glue that up before we go and polish it. So we've ground those heel blocks. Now we'll put some glue on, let that set, put the heels on, and then we'll trim right the way around, paint them up, and they'll be all done. So I've just ground around the edges, taken the burrs off, removed loose bits of glue, and give them a real light sand now and a coat of paint. So just going to give these a bit of a light sand, pretty lightweight sandpaper, go around the edges just to scuff it up. It'll make the paint stick way better. Might even put some gloves on, I think. Usually think of gloves about halfway through the job. You can see how it just makes it look a bit more matte finished, and you know that the colour's going to soak in evenly and give a nice edge to it. Blow the dust off that because that's not what we need. And we'll go find some gloves as well. Gave this a good shake before, but nothing like giving another quick shake now, I reckon. The trick with this paint is just a little bit. Put some onto that sponge. I guess you can see that. And then just rub it in. Roughly doing some little circles, you see. So that was just a bit on there, and that's going to do, you know, all the way up to there. Sort of dodgy black heel block out as well. I'm not really impressed with that look, but we'll come back to that later. We're not actually charging the lady for this, so I'm just going to make them look nice. I'm not going to spend hours stripping it back, and it's not trying to get a massive shiny professional finish that they're going to wear to work every day. Well, she is going to wear them to work, but just literally onto work on the farm. There's that bit where I put a bit much paint on just when I was testing the colours. Gives that a bit of a sand off. Give this a bit of polish, wax. Once this is dried, I better hurry up because my phone battery's going flat. And so I didn't start on the toe because that's the bit you want to get right. And now that you've got your skills up, you can rub some into that toe. For a while we used to always want to start on the toe. See the different leathers there with that toe cap. But anyway. Oh, definitely missed a bit in there. You can probably see bits I'm missing on the camera. Some of them it's just too bad and we'll catch it with a polish later, but it's nice to get a coat on there. And yeah, if you're not sweating doing this sort of work, you're not going fast enough. I used that black EVA, if you're wondering, in that heel block there, because our brown's a bit of a ghastly brown. I thought if I go with the black, because she's more than likely not going to care once it's covered in horse dews. Right, so that's that one done. Don't know how long that took, but it wasn't too long. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of black polish, and we'll take a couple of photos. And as far as polishing goes, let's have a look at that. Now, you don't want to spend too much time on it. Get a bit of polish on it. And rub it in. It's not when people make it into a much bigger deal than it needs to be. Get some around those edges. And let that sit for a couple of minutes to dry. And then we'll buff it off a bit. Grab a couple of photos with the before and after of how they were looking just a couple of minutes ago. Actually, we'll show you what the other one was looking like. So that's the difference, just in a few short minutes. Scuffed up and munted, and looking almost presentable. Let me go ahead and do this other one, and then we'll finish this job off. Hey, Shane here. So these are all done. I think it was this one that had the dog chew problem. So it's got a toe cap on there, sorted out the insoles inside, removed all of the old sole, ran a new edge, new sole, heel block, heel on the back, put some colour on them, then put some polish on them. They should be good to go. Certainly up to farmyard standard anyway. If you've got any questions, go to shanes.co.nz. Looking shimmy on the right there, and looking like puppy issues on the left. Here you can see the grippy sole we added on this base, and the toe cap certainly looking far superior. So thank you very much to You Shoes for donating your toe caps. That boot is done. This boot was just bugging me how it had this strap that had stretched and was going to be a bit of a hazard, so I've unpicked that, shortened it, and we're just going to glue that in place about there, and then go and stitch that on. Then we can parcel them up and send them back to the customer.